So the study in 2022 showed that people on average were eating 900 calories more than they thought they were. Whether they were big or small, doesn't matter. That's like eating half a medium pizza and completely forgetting about it. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Taylor, co-owner of VeganProteins Online Coaching, and today we have Coach Alice with us. And she has had a really great idea for a YouTube video that I have been, quite frankly, too intimidated to do, where we teach you how to properly track your food. How many times have you had a client that, they show you their food diary and they're like, the intentions are good. They're not like deliberately doing anything wrong, but they're misweighing it.
Misweighing all the time. You can tell that they've weighed a much smaller amount than they've actually likely eaten, or vice versa, and macros get way skewed for the day.
So how do you know how to measure stuff? Do you use a scale? Do you use measuring cups? Do you weigh your food raw? Do you weigh your food cooked? Guess what? It's different for every single item, so we're gonna walk you through that today. But before we get into that, if you're a vegan who's looking to level up your physique, that's what we do here at VeganProteins, and we put out videos every single week with tips, tricks, recipes, meal plans, the like, so go ahead and hit subscribe. So we got a lot of content coming at you with this video, and it might be hard to keep it all in your brain, so if you want a cheat sheet of all the stuff we're talking about today, there's a link down below to download it. You can print it out, stick it on your fridge, enter your email down below, and we will email that right to you.
Tracking your food is one of the most powerful tools for reaching your body composition goals, regardless of whether you are trying to build muscle, lose some pounds, or just change your body composition. But it's definitely not without its drawbacks. It can also be overwhelming if you've never done it before, and there's lots of room for errors. But tracking done well can help you understand what's actually going into your body. It takes the guesswork out of everything. It teaches you portion awareness and helps you make confident adjustments when things end up plateauing. But it can be confusing knowing the best ways to track things, which can lead people to become frustrated and give up entirely. Do you track raw or do you track cooked food? Should you weigh food or should you measure it? And how the heck do you log a recipe and track your food from that recipe? In this video, Danny and I are going to show you exactly how to weigh and measure specific foods in your kitchen so that you know when to break out the food scale and when to grab a measuring cup and when it's fine to just eyeball things. Measuring cups and spoons are super convenient, quick, they're familiar, but they're oftentimes super inaccurate. And that's due to a lot of different factors like different manufacturers, the food settling in after packaging, using a heavy-handed scoop, which we all do. Volume measurements can be off by a lot. A cup of oats, for example, can be packed very tightly or loosely. A tablespoon of peanut butter can vary by 100 calories depending on how it's scooped. A cup of whole unsliced strawberries will give you way less than a cup of diced strawberries will. That's where your food scale comes in handy. For calorie dense or sticky foods, weighing in grams is going to give you a much more precise picture of what you're actually eating. But not everything needs that level of accuracy. If you have more extreme goals like competing in a bodybuilding competition, or if you are just stuck in a weight loss plateau, it's probably a good idea to break out the food scale. In this section, we're going to break down when to grab the scale and when measuring cups are going to be close enough. So what foods should you weigh? Basically going to be foods that are very calorie dense, meaning there's going to be a lot of calories in one smaller portion size. Things like your protein powders, your tofu, tempeh, seitan, your nuts, seeds, and nut butters, avocados, dates, bananas, pineapples, and other very sweet fruits. Things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and squash, beans and other legumes, oats, rice, and grains, breads, cereals, and your snack foods, all of your snack foods like crackers, chips, cookies, cakes, candy, and ice cream. Anything with sugar, any kind of dressing, creamers and sauces and oils.
Let's start with walnuts. I'm going to compare a 1/4 cup of crushed walnuts to a 1/4 cup of halved walnuts to show how even though they're both a 1/4 cup, they weigh 11 grams different, and neither of them are the 32 grams that the package suggests, so weighing walnuts makes the most sense. Next, looking at strawberries, when we compare 1 cup of whole strawberries to 1 cup of chopped strawberries, we see that there's a big difference in weight here, so it definitely makes more sense to weigh your fruit rather than try to measure it out in measuring cups. Measuring 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, which is the serving size, with my tablespoon amounted to more than 30% higher than what the serving size of 32 grams recommends. It came out to be 42 grams. So I wanted to show you what the difference was between my weighed out 32 grams of peanut butter versus my peanut butter measured with the measuring cup. Bread is an interesting one because even though a serving size is 1 slice, every slice may weigh a different amount. So here you can see, depending on which slice in the loaf I grab, it can weigh anything from 15 grams all the way up to 54 grams. Also, protein powder is usually in a 1 or 2 scoop serving based on the package. But if you just use the scoop, you don't realize that you're usually getting a lot more than the package recommends, so it makes a lot of sense to weigh your protein powder. I have 2 bowls here of 85 grams of raw tofu. Let's cook them 2 different ways. So we're going to air fry one batch and saute the other. And when we weigh the final batches, we see that the weight has changed significantly from the 85 grams that we started with, and it's different depending on the cooking method. So it makes the most sense to weigh your tofu raw before you cook it. Let's do the same thing here with 2 separate portions of 2 ounces of raw pasta. Now I boiled both of these, but one batch I cooked to al dente, and that came out to be 95 grams cooked, while the other I cooked for 5 minutes longer, and it added a full 27 grams to that serving. So it definitely makes sense to weigh your pasta raw. Here we are going to compare different methods of cooking potato. So I have 2 potatoes that are 123 grams, 2 that are 143 grams, 2 that are 203 grams, and yes, that was in fact very hard to find. So now I'm going to use 3 different cooking methods: microwaving to mimic baking, chopped and boiled, or chopped and air fried. And you can see that they came out completely different from where they started, especially the microwaved and the air fried. Shockingly, the boiled potato came out very close to where it started, but it just goes to show you how much the cooking method affects it, so you should weigh your potatoes raw. Moving on to rice, if I want to cook 6 45-gram servings of rice, I start with 270 grams of raw rice, and after I cook it, it comes out to be 737 grams cooked. So I'm going to divide 737 by my 6 servings, so I know when I go to get a serving from the fridge to take 123 grams of cooked rice. And a quick word on chickpeas. So when you read the back and it says 130 grams is about 1 serving, that is including the water weight that is in the can. So this is where I make an exception, and I think it makes the most sense to measure the chickpeas with a measuring cup, because most of us are not eating that water with the serving.
Things that you can use a measuring cup for are foods that are very voluminous, meaning there's very few calories in one portion size. Even if it's a big portion size, it's very, very low calories. Things like your non-starchy vegetables. What does that mean? For simplicity, I like to say it's anything other than your potatoes, beans and other legumes, and carrots. Also low sugar foods like berries, melons, apples, herbs and spices, extracts like vanilla extract or coconut extract, your vinegars, 0-calorie condiments like mustard and hot sauces, 0-calorie sweetener, unsweet beverages like coffee, tea, and diet drinks. When should we measure cooked food or raw foods? One of the most common tracking mistakes that we see, especially among people who are otherwise doing everything right, is mixing up raw and cooked weights when they're tracking their foods. It's a really easy error to make, and one that me and Danny have made, especially in the beginning. But it can throw off your calorie and macro count a lot more than you think. And the reason's simple. The cooking changes the amount of water content that's in your food. That's going to, of course, change the weight. A cup of raw rice and a cup of cooked rice are not interchangeable. Same with things like potatoes and tofu and grains. Even vegetables can shrink down significantly when they're finished cooking. Whether a food absorbs water, loses water, or changes shape while it's cooking, you need to be able to match the way the food has been cooked to the way you are logging it. Nearly all food that you log is going to be more accurate when you weigh it raw, but there are some that are certainly more important than others. So here are some foods that you should weigh before cooking ideally. Things like pasta, your rice and your other grains, your oats, your potatoes, your beans, squash, TVP, soy curls, for example, tofu and tempeh. And when do we weigh our food? When it's cooked. Ideally after we have made a recipe, right? So let's get into those details. Some of the things aren't always very practical to weigh raw. Rice is a great example, but who's going to cook just 1 serving of rice, like a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup of rice? So we want to go over how you can handle these types of situations. So let's do the same with tofu. Most of us are trying to really carefully track our protein, and most of us aren't going to be cooking just a partial block of tofu at a time, right? So if that's not your style and you like to air fry, say, an entire block of tofu, once you finish cooking, add a bowl or a dish onto your scale and zero it out. Now let's say you wanted to eat a third a block of tofu so that you would get about 23 grams of protein, and this is with an extra firm block of tofu, right? You're gonna weigh the entire block of tofu after it's cooked and then divide that by 3. Now you know how to account for the water loss and food weight changes when you're cooking, and you're gonna log it very accurately in your food diary. We mentioned tofu specifically because depending on your goals, like trying to build some serious muscle or trying not to lose muscle during a really steep cut, you may want to be more precise in hitting your protein goals every day. So if the recipe calls for mixing in chunks of protein, like tofu tempeh seitan, in with a big batch of soup or a steaming pile of noodles, I recommend preparing them separately, including logging them in separate recipes in your nutrition app. It's one more step in your measuring process, but it's worth it for anyone who has major body transformation goals.
Now to make a recipe, you're gonna go into MyFitnessPal, hit create recipe, give it a name, and to start, just put in 1 serving. Now before you start actually making your recipe, make sure that you weigh your empty dish or pot that you'll be cooking this in and make a note of that empty dish's weight. Then go into MyFitnessPal, build the recipe by putting in every single item that you put into that recipe, and then cook it. When it comes out of the oven, you're gonna weigh the entire dish with the food in it. Now you're going to take the final weight and subtract the pan weight, and however many grams you get, that's how many servings you're going to say that this recipe makes. Now, when you go to have this dish, in this case an enchilada pie, if I were to have a 250 gram serving, I would put in that I have 250 servings and it's gonna give me the right macros for that. This is the most accurate way to track a recipe. Well, thank you so much, Alice, for taking all of that time to share that with everybody. That was a lot, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you are a vegan and you're looking to level up your physique, build muscle, get leaner, change your physique, get healthier, feel better, that's what we do at Vegan Proteins. That's what we've been doing since 2008. I'm gonna leave a link to the coaching assessment down below, and maybe you yourself could work with Alice. So fill out the coaching assessment. You'll hear back from one of us within a business day. If you like the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things I'm supposed to tell you to do at the end of a YouTube video, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.
Cooked potatoes or raw potatoes. Cooked potatoes.
That was great. I hope they keep the sound effect.
Slow motion it for some stupid.
Cooked potatoes, cooked rice, or raw rice. The way you